Skip ahead. On, off, off, 5. Alright, so tell me, I mean, I know a little bit about you, obviously, but tell me, I generally do just play hit scan, like, give me a little bit of context in terms of, like, I guess, goals for you as a player, like, long term, alongside just general role stuff that you play as well. And also, do you play in a team? Do you want to play in a team? Stuff like that, basically.
Well, I definitely want to hit GM. That's like
Alright,
my main goal right now, like short term.
alright, yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
I
Um,
do play lots of hit scan. I've been picking up Tracer as well.
how often do you play the game? Like, how many hours per day?
Oh, like as much as I can. Like usually around 4 to 5.
Okay, yeah.
Yesterday I played 12.
All right,
Um,
yeah, that's quite a lot.
yeah.
Do you so like the thing with that's more than enough playtime to get or to climb to GM. But here's the thing: if you're putting in 4, 5, or even more hours into the game, and again, I mean, you are climbing. You do get masters yesterday. But I would try and streamline it, and make it a bit more efficient with how you're climbing. Because again, if you're playing 12 hours a day and you're going 50-50, you're gaining no SR. Might even be losing some basic based on MMR. I would try and integrate some kind of self-VOD review, like in between every, I don't know, 2 hours of gameplay or 3 hours of gameplay. I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be that common, actually. It can just be like once a week, maybe. But at the very least, I want some kind of break taking between how long you play the game. Again, generally, this is why teams will only scrim for 2 hours a block. So they'll do 2 hours a break, then 2 hours, and then that's a double block. It's kind of the same thing when playing the game because what you don't want happening, especially on hit scan, is you lose games because either you're missing shots because you're tired, or you're just not thinking about the game. And if this is like a session or like the Samoa game is deep into a 12-hour session or whatever, then and you're making mistakes that normally you wouldn't be making because you're a little bit more aware or it's the start of a session or whatever the case may be, then that's really important. So hopefully we can go over some stuff that's like that might be revelatory, and hopefully, as you sort of mentioned, that you might not know what to do here. I mean, here you don't know the enemy comp because it's first fights, right? But what are you looking to do against the enemy comp here?
I mean, against this comp, probably poking out the Farah is
Sure.
probably my first job.
What about like the angles specifically? What kind of angles are you looking to be taking against that comp?
Right, so definitely not a long one because they have a Widow. I'd probably want to be somewhat almost flanking.
Yes, right. So this is where it gets like really unconventional. Where especially on this point of Samoa, where sidelines are really really long. So again, in team play, you'll see characters not like Widow, but you'll see characters like Ana. You'll see characters like Sojourn a lot more come out on these sort of maps here. And Cassidy is a lot less common on this kind of map because again the sidelines are really long. So actually, what kind of spaces are you anticipating, or what might you think about using on this map specifically?
Probably right where the arrow is because there's cover there. It kind of blocks off the long sight line.
Yeah, not exactly what I was particularly thinking, but I mean, it could work. Considering that again, you want to play shorter sightlines, and again, these guys have not got the mobility. At least most of them don't, to be able to chase you down. We'll get into the hazard here in a moment. Are there any other spaces that you might want to think about taking?
Probably like right at the top.
Yes, right. So right over here, and this is where we get into like more unconventional stuff with Cassidy, where of course, generally on this map, if you play it against most of the compositions, you're not really going to be flanking around here to the side here that much. And honestly, you still might not because the flank's a bit too long. But generally, if I can see you play like these shorter sightlines here, like again, you can play the sort of room where you've got a shorter sightline onto the Widow, who might be playing in the sort of room over here. Or if you've got the time to be able to flank through right side and try and catch someone off guard, that's also really important. What I don't want happening is you stand here and get out range and out poked. That Hazard tries to reach you, and then you should struggle to move and rotate in general. Because if you're playing here, I don't know where you move to. You can't really move here. You can't really move here. I mean, it's open space. I mean, this is probably your best move to make, but even then, it's still a little bit out in the open. So it's going to be tough in terms of your sight lines. And actually, I'm looking for a lot more of a flanky playstyle. If you watch, I think it's Lethal, on GK Esports, but he's historically, since contenders in 2021, 2020 days, he's historically known for being really, really hyper aggressive on hit scan, and he can really leverage that when he plays Cassidy, or this again, this was really popular back in 2020 and 2021 Brawl metas. He was really flank heavy, especially when it came to maps like Havana, and he could get away with it because they were well timed and because the enemy composition didn't feature characters that could chase him down or hunt him down. Now, obviously, Hazard and maybe to a lesser extent Farah here are characters that can sort of chase you down, sort of close the distance and try to punish you. But against Hazard, I wouldn't really worry about that. Again, you can roll away from his leap. You can almost sort of bait the Hazard into chasing you. There's something that I tell hit scan players all the time, even flex support players too, is you want to play a position such that you want the Hazard to come and get you. Because if that implies that you're safe. So, and if you're playing over here, and maybe, I don't know, the Hazard is playing, so like probably, I don't know, over here, you kind of want him to leap onto you because it's just too far away for him, and then you'll just roll away and you'll be fine. Obviously, if he's playing a lot closer to you, so maybe he's like wall climbing and playing around here, you don't want him to push you because his sight lines is really, really close to you, and you'll get punished for it. In which case, then you might start to think about rotating around and trying to out-rotate the Hazard and make it and take a different angle. So we'll see how this sort of map goes here. But the things I'm mainly looking for is, again, avoidance of the Hazards and trying to avoid sightlines where possible and try and take long sightlines. And again, we'll see how that pans out here. Okay. Alright. For reference, you could also go left side, but your character's got no verticality. You just can't reach the stairs here, so that's why going left side is not a smart idea. But we'll see, again, how you played it. Of course, first fight, you don't exactly know what they're running. Okay, so you don't have like a Widow. Okay. Okay. Door. Okay. Okay. So, like, immediately from the get-go, where could you maybe think about moving to from this left side here? So you get pushed off by the Hazard here. That's whatever, right? Where could you maybe move to from here?
I could probably go up the stairs and try and get on the Widow.
Right, right, because you know exactly where she is, right? And look at, she's actually even out-rotated you. She's starting, I think she might be moving away right now. If she's not, she's out of the game. Okay, she's re-picking, she's out of the game. But like right about now, this would be a great time to sort of move and out-rotate, because you can't really move many other places. I mean, you can maybe move up the stairs here, but again, Hans is playing high ground here, he can punish you. You can maybe even move up here, but again, Widow's sightlines are annoying, so you can't really move to there. So really the only place you can move is trying to flank around left side and trying to catch the Widow here and push the high ground here. That's really the only place you can move. What are the benefits of playing and flanking like this? In this situation here?
I mean, it's really far away from the Hazard, so you can't really, it's not a threat.
Right, you're out-rotating the Hazard here. In fact, I literally the video I just made on Baptiste briefly talked about out-rotating Hazard players, specifically actually on Ilios, and this is kind of a similar example where, again, by pushing left side here, not only are you getting a shorter sightline on the Widowmaker, so you can roll and then try and threaten the duel essentially. You hit one dink, he's going to be forced to move away. You take this high ground here, and there's not really many places you can move. And that's a really nice thing to have. But also the Hazard gets out rotated here. And this is kind of, I guess, the hard thing that is sometimes, again, hard to see. Again, this is first fight, so maybe you're not thinking about composition too much. But this is where, like, you need to be able to adapt to different comps. Because if we swap the comp here, and maybe let's say they're playing a more like a Lucio, Kiri, Winston kind of comp, then standing where you are right now is actually fairly reasonable. And actually, going up the stairs is also fairly reasonable too against that kind of comp where you can outrange them and put a lot more pressure onto the enemy Winston. Where again, he can't really punish you that badly. But against this comp here, like this is where that changes entirely. Of course, it's not just Widowmaker that's the swinging factor here. Has to play a part on this too. But also, again, if they're playing Zen, or Baptiste, or Life Weaver, or any else, or other range sort of supports, I'd be saying the exact same thing. So we'll see. There's one other thing I wanted to see here as well in terms of like whether you needed to drop off high ground here, but I'll watch that back in a moment. But we look at, maybe we can draw a box here. Sometimes I like doing this with players where I will, should end up dying though actually, you're lucky you lived that. But we'll draw a box here, and we'll see how long you stay here. So 53, 2 exits. Okay. Right, look, like, you know, like, it looks kind of crazy, because you've been here for, what, 13, 14 seconds so far? Still here. Wow. So, for what, 23 seconds, you stay in the exact same position? And that is what you call static positioning, you know? So I guess the question here becomes, why do you not go left side?
Honestly, I just feel pressured by the Widow, which is
Right.
stupid, but it is what it is.
Right. I think there is some kind of element in terms of like, hey, like I don't want to get one shot by Widowmaker here, but if in case I do peek it, which I think is fair. But there's sort of two factors to that, right? So the first thing is your Widowmaker, right? So let her sort of take the awareness off the duel. This is actually something that I give Widow players here too as well, where in terms of like, hey, if you want to duel a Widowmaker, if there's a Winston or someone else running down the Widowmaker, so maybe I don't know, I was playing fucking Winston here and jumping the Widow, then the Widow can peek that. So because essentially you can use the Widow as a distraction, sure. That's the first thing. Second thing is just roll micro, right? So the second you peek this corner here, like the second you come through here, I think you can jump onto here anyways and then go through here. So your silence can be a little bit more unpredictable. But second you come through here, you can roll straight through immediately, and then even if he does headshot you, your roll sort of damage reduction staves that off essentially. And then you should have enough time to land the dink and then force Widow to deep peek immediately. That's another thing there as well in terms of the micro, in terms of how you can play that. So yeah, use your Widow as a distraction, so she'll be aiming at the Widow. You can also use sound cues as well. So maybe you can, again, if she fires a shot, it takes, a second for it to fully charge. So you hear her fire a shot, then you immediately walk forward. You don't even need to roll because she's already fired a shot and it takes time to charge a shot, obviously. So wait for her to fire a shot, then walk forward, roll forward if you need to, and then you can catch her. So there's micro to be done there in terms of winning the duel, for sure. But if you've got good micro, I don't see any reason to not sort of take the duel here. Because the other thing that might be Venomine, but let's be real, 99% of Widowmakers never use Venomine anyways. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. But this is probably like going to be the biggest, I guess, fancy English word for this is microcosm. But biggest sort of example case where, again, you're probably going to stand here because you're scared about moving. And this is actually something that teams do as well, where like, what do you call it? It's playing to not, playing to not lose instead of playing to win, I think is the saying. And here it's very clearly you're playing to not lose this. I think especially after your Widow dies here too, like you need to make a play happen. Otherwise you're just gonna lose this fight. So yeah, and of course going forward here, not a great move. In fact, we might go to your POV here. I will not be surprised if Hazard goes on to you. He might not because of, you're scary, close up, but we'll see. Roll there's not great, and again, that roll there as well, like micro-wise, that's also not great as well. Because I think you're trying to move out in open space to be fair, but it's a bit of micro here regardless, right? But again, I'm not a massive fan of the roll there because you could have headshot you, and you didn't get to cover immediately there. But regardless, the silence here is the main concern. It Hazard ignores you and goes for someone else, to be honest. Yeah. Okay. And you just can't move, you just can't move. They get a nice pick down to Mercy at least. Maybe retakes would be a bit easier. Like what trade. Or... yeah, I just would have found the hammer, but it's fine. Okay. The main thing there is, again, your positioning. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I feel like I was stuck there just because I was trying to play really tight to cover.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, because again, you're sort of enclosed by the start lines from the enemy team. But yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. We'll lose the duel again. Fortunate. It's 2. Okay. And the only thing I could have really said here is your pathing, because you kind of like drift out here and you're in a zoom out. Like the second you come out of spawn, I need you to go right side immediately. Like immediately. There's no other place you can really go. Now you can maybe go into the room here, but again, Hazard's really strong into the room. Left side, realistically, you're not gonna go because the start lines are way too long against the enemy comp. Like, right side's the only place you can go here. And by seeing just your body language in terms of how you're moving, you're looking at the Hazard, moving forward, kind of, right? You're not really thinking too much about how you're moving and how you're flanking and what sort of angles you want to be taking against the enemy comp here. Which is unfortunate, right? So maybe had you gone right side earlier, you catch the Widowmaker. Yeah, she just died for that at least. But it's almost too little too late. Probably gonna get rezzed, and damage has already been done from your team. Okay. Let's see. Just doesn't get res, but that's good at least. Okay. So when that Widow dies here, right? So after she doesn't get res, where should you move to? And why? 2 options.
I feel like I should either peel the Pharah in the back line or just carry on walking forward into that room to go for the Geno.
Right. So Pharah's behind you. I what option do you take then? Do you turn around and kill the Pharah, or do you walk forward?
Yeah, I do. I turn around.
Okay, good. Why is turning around here generally better?
I mean, it's just more safe and it avoids them getting picks.
Right. What might happen if you walk forward here and you leave the Pharah uncontested? What might
It'll
happen?
keep my team behind, so then I'll be way more forward than my tank and I'll just get turned on.
Right, yeah, is that essentially right? Like the hazard will outduel you, or you'll get pincered by the Pharah and the hazard by both angles, and it becomes really tough to actually move. Now generally, like this is a very general sort of rule, especially considering you haven't got speed boost, and this is again the complexity of Overwatch. Again, maybe had you been playing hell, even if I was playing in this lobby and I was playing Malga, and again we're running like Lucio Juno or Brig Juno, I might say just run down the hazard here because he's really close, and you can out rotate the Pharah here essentially. Where again you can just sort of burn down the hazard before the Pharah even does anything. And that's actually a fairly common thing to do in team play, just sort of push an angle before the other angle does something here. But of course, in a situation where you've got no speed boost, there's not really another option you can really have. Of course, Pharah is actually fairly far away, but I think the fact that, again, you can hear her flying around, fire some rockets in, you can maybe play this enclosed room here. You can even do two things at once, right? You can force up the hazard, make him go away, then play the room, and then just play to force up the Pharah. So we'll see what you end up doing here. But yeah, hopefully you can slow the tempo down a little bit and not feed your brains out, because that would be the worst thing to happen here. If you're the enemy team, you play for trades here, essentially. But yeah. Turn him out, yeah, good. Nice. Cal Barrage. Sure. Nice. Okay. Lights up. Just things down a little bit. Okay. Again, I wouldn't even like this peeking here. I wouldn't even do it because of sights. I wouldn't even do it. Now you're lucky here because she's not peeking this angle here. Where is she at right now? I've got no idea. Where's that angle? What is this? What is this? Oh my days. Yeah, okay. That Widow just chooses the worst sight line possible to use sights, regardless. But yeah, Widow should be playing like around about here, maybe even here. Like I wouldn't even peek this. This is way too risky. And I get it's something that I say to players sometimes as well is that in this not in this elo, right, but you'll get away with things that in principle you shouldn't be getting away with. And the fact that I see you peek into sights is really worrying. Again, the Widow just takes the worst, plays like a tracer. She plays like a tracer essentially in terms of the sight line of what she's taking. So you're fairly lucky here. I would just AFK. I would just AFK or try to sort of play stone flank around right side. The only two things I would do here really. I wouldn't even pick the sight line.
I do die here, but it's stupid.
We'll see, yeah. Okay. I mean, you know where Widow is, so you can peek it at least because of where Widow's playing, so it's fine.
I try and jiggle peek it.
Oh god, yeah. You need roll for it. Like you just need roll for it. If you wanna go for that peek, just roll. But you haven't got roll, sadly. So, or you used it beforehand. So, yeah. That's just micro in the duel. Which is really unfortunate that the Widow gets two from the worst possible sight line in humanity. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay. See here. Okay. Again, I just would not be playing. I mean, I think Widow's dead in spawn. She died last fight. She might go rest. Yeah, she's coming back. Yeah, she's already back from spawn. But yeah, here again, I just wouldn't be taking this angle here. We'll see what happens here. Okay. Sure.
I lose the duel. I actually die.
I mean, you die to the Juno here, which is not what I'm really concerned about. It's mainly the hazard here, essentially. And again, the Widow, right? Because again, you just can't, like, if Hazard's playing in this room, you can't move in the room at all. Again, you can't move here. You can't move here, really. You can't really move out here. It just becomes really, really tough for you. So again, I just go right side. Look at your team, you know? Like, your team's clearly going right side here. Like, I guess, again, the question here becomes, like, why were you so adamant in terms of going down main here? Or playing this sort of room?
I feel like it's just map knowledge. Like I didn't really think of going that other route.
Right. Yeah. I mean, were you considering like their comp here on this specific map, and how that adapts to like what you're pathing and how you're playing?
I mean, I was definitely thinking about range at the time.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe it might be useful to just look at. Again, I haven't looked at lethal POVs in like again since fucking 2021. so I can't really say or like list a POV. But I think his playstyle in general, again, really sort of alludes to like playing really, really aggro. Even nowadays on Sojourn, he'll still do it, and honestly, he's a bit too aggressive for it. But yeah, like this kind of play here is very static. It's not adapting to the comp, it's not adapting to the map, it's not adapting to where, again, Hazel's playing, and I really think that first fight showcases it all, really, in terms of, again, how static you're playing. But yeah, hopefully the next map here is a little bit better. Okay. Alright. This, yeah. I could already guess that you said, I think you told me that the last round here is a bit of a roll, which kind of makes sense, because the last map it's a lot more favored for your character. I always say this in terms of like, you need to learn how to play your character in suboptimal situations and in against suboptimal comps, you know? That's how you're gonna get better at Cassidy. So I'm actually glad that you didn't swap off Cassidy there. But yeah, it is a good learning lesson of how actually playing and adapting that character. But yeah, we'll see here. Already looks a lot better. Okay. Sure. This isn't the first or initial sideline I'll take it. So why do you go, and it's a bit of micro, but again, I think this links into the mindset thing generally and holistically. Why do you actually not walk in the room here? And why do you actually drop down and go this side?
It's just to play closer range. I was worried about my fall off.
Right. Yeah, I get that, yeah. Why, I mean, why might it be better to go into the room here? At least initially, for the starts.
I guess it's just because I don't know if the tank's like rotating towards me through the same route I was taking.
Exactly, right? Like it's just the fact that you've got more cover here to use, and the tank might come in anyways, and will punish you for it. So this is something that again I think flexible players should learn generally as well. But generally, and even brig players, and just characters in general. But at the start of fights, you can play at like a fairly decent range, and then you can eventually you can still walk from like in the building to a closer sight line here anyways, and flank around to the left a little bit more. You can still take sort of shorter sight lines regardless. It gives you a little bit more leeway in terms of, again, making sure you're unscouted by playing in the building here, because the cover just blocks you off, and also gives you a little bit more distance to use in case Hazard does actually come at you. So that's my only qualm there, essentially, is, again, the scouting, and being unscouted on Cassidy here, essentially. Nothing crazy, obviously. It just links into the mindset stuff in general. Angle is good. Luckily, your D.Va kills the Widow here, so there's no concern about that. Yeah, nice. Good rotation. Okay. What's the one mistake you make here?
I roll for no reason.
Yeah, you're right. Again, it's just pure... it's just micro down there, and it's the second time we've seen you aggressively use roll for no real concern or no actual reason. It feels like it's for reload here, because you're out of bullets here, so maybe you roll for... Yeah, I think it's a little bit... It's kind of two, right? You roll for the reload, and you roll for to actually take the angle here. Whereas, again, you need the roll for the hazard.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the time, I just like roll on an angle just to like pass the cover and get there quicker.
Right. Yeah, it's again, you'll have games where you won't get punished for this, and hell, even right now, like you probably will not get punished for using roll here. Like when hazard goes on to you. Also, we'll talk about additional micro here in a moment. But when you go into hazard here, we roll back, and then you don't roll back at all really. But again, like there, you should have got punished. Like you should have just got completely clotted by the enemy hazard, but you didn't. And that probably will reinforce, or there'll be things like that you just won't notice because you're not getting punished for it. So you're actually living that engagement, because of a bad roll. So yeah, again, it is important to again have a little bit more discipline with how you take your angles here. And speaking of discipline, this links into this idea here too. What is the second mistake you make right about here-ish? It's not immediately obvious.
I guess maybe it's just to do with timing on the tank.
Not exactly what I was saying. I think timing is actually fairly okay here. I mean, again, your D.Va's already really in at the moment. Your Traitor's in at the moment too. I've actually got no concerns with the timing. I think timing is actually pretty good here. I've got no concerns with that. What about... Again, it's kind of obvious. It's not obvious if you don't know the concept. But how could you swing this corner that makes... How could you swing this corner that makes it a little bit safer for your character?
I could have used that little pole thing as cover.
Right, so that's part of it, right? There's also swinging the corner with distance, right? So if I go top down, this might show it a little bit easier. But you pretty much get, if I back it up here to where you actually start doing damage onto the Juno. Right, so you practically get the exact same angle from here as you do from, how far do you walk? From there, right? And it might not look like a lot of distance here, but the point here being is that by swinging corners wide, you give yourself, again, more distance and more time to react to what's going on in front of you. To mention, the cover here is also very useful. Gives you more leeway against hazard. So again, this is what hit scan players generally need to learn as well. Even in Pro League, they don't do this. Or some of them don't, especially Seeker. But when you're swinging corners, like you're swinging this corner here, swing as far away from it as humanly possible. I would even suggest swinging as far away like this, if it was even possible to do it from this sort of angle here. But just because it gives you more distance, instead of just doing this and hugging the corner. So yeah, it's not the best example to show it. I could even show some example from Seeker at the end. I probably will actually. It was from my favorite video. But swinging corners like this, you will save your life way more. So yeah, that'll be quite easy to do next time you're swinging a corner. Again, it's something that you'll need to build in proactively. Like you won't do this, you won't do it subconsciously because pro players don't do it subconsciously. But yeah, it will save you a lot of the time. But yeah, okay. So some micro there, but timing great, angle itself pretty good. No real complaints there really. Sightline's good as well. But yeah, some stuff about scouting there at the beginning, and then so a lot of micro here in terms of how you play the angle and making sure you can actually live next time, or in principle live next time. Okay. Alright. Now on Tracer. Okay. So again, immediately the sightlines you take change drastically just by that one swap. Like Pharah, you're more than welcome playing long sightlines against Pharah. Again, she needs to cross open space to come and get you. You're more than happy doing that. Tracer, you actually want longer sightlines against Tracer, false her out from the beginning. Same against this guy Hazard. Like now, the way you play the character drastically changes. We'll see if you can play well into that comp. Nice, sure. I don't even care they don't kill the Juno. It's fine. Okay. Your team are just dying here. What is going on? Oh, good top. Okay, let's see. Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna blame you for this, to be honest. It mostly just dies for a dumb res. Yeah, nice trade, sure. Okay. Sure, nice. Okay, you do the right thing, you play for trades when you're down 2. So honestly, you should have died for this by the hazard, but again, you do the right thing in terms of playing for trades. Okay, sure. I'm not gonna mind that, you should have lost that regardless, but I've got no complaints about that fight, really. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Okay. And again, like, swinging the corner wide, right? So this is the corner you're swinging. So, right about here. Swing it from here. So use the taxi. If you, at the worst case scenario, use the taxi. Because again, this is too close, right? And again, I wouldn't be surprised against a good hazard player if you end up dying because of it. Fortunately, you don't. You don't get slashed here, but yeah. You still might die. Yeah, you still might die for it, right? Been unfortunate. Okay. Let's see here. Hopefully, when we get an actual fight going. Okay. Okay. Sure. Fine. Trade. Good trade on your ends. Okay. So where do you move to from here?
Probably right side, because I know their tank is on the left side.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that tank just died, but yeah, I mean, tank's dead on the left side. True. Yeah. So yeah, you just put the hazard there. And then you did get res right now, so again, that can change things. Only thing I could say here is maybe denying res, but honestly, your diva was here already, so I don't mind if you thought your diva was gonna mock the res here. Not a massive complaint. Yeah, I don't know why she just moves away from it. But yeah, I think going right to here, fine. No massive complaints. We'll see here. Sure, charge, whatever. Okay. There's nothing much I can say there, really. Like, again, like, your diva should have been marking the left side here, so you're actually able to swing right side. And again, if your diva was marking left, then it doesn't come over the top. Nothing crazy. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Sure. That's fine. Again, I would not use roll, you know?
Yeah.
I would just not bother using this. Okay. Nice. Okay. Okay. What's the issue with this position here?
I mean, I guess I just walked past the hazard.
Why is that an issue? I mean, you're correct that is a concern, but why is that becoming an issue here? Why might that be an issue?
Because I'm completely pincered if they decide to walk backwards and disengage from the fight, then
right?
they're on me.
Exactly. So again, if Pharmacy pins you from here, these guys can pin you from here. It's a lot looking great for you as a character. So where could you have moved to instead after you killed this person? And you were like over here.
Just maybe like stayed at the taxi and shot at the hazard and tried to kill him.
Yeah, right. So you got a tough choice, right? You either stay here and try and force this guy out, or you walk forward and try and look for a kill through the Farah and maybe the Mercy here as well. Now, generally, again, the general saying that I give to players is force out frontline before you go backline. So, in other words, force this guy out first before you end up going onto the backline here. But I actually think going Farah here is not a bad choice, right? So why is going Farah here actually relatively fine? Maybe not through this direction. Maybe this would have been better. But why is ignoring the hazard essentially a better choice here?
It's just because my Diva and the Mercy's there, so it's a better trade for us. It's a 3v2.
Yeah, but isn't this also a 3v1?
That's true.
Right, so why... It essentially comes down to how dangerous their hazard is. Right, so is their hazard right now at the moment that dangerous?
Not to me, no.
Not to you, no. And you can avoid him immediately. Now, I think that's a Juno there as well from their team. Runabouts here, yeah. So you could actually just go for the Juno here instead and try and look for a trait there. Again, I wouldn't necessarily do that because this guy can mark you. But in this situation here, you can actually out-rotate the hazard because you can just go over here and he's gone. And your Tracer can also out-rotate the hazard because she's fucking Tracer. She can just leave, you know. She's fine. So she can actually sort of leave this sort of engagement here. Now, conversely, maybe you're playing with a Zen, I don't know, Baptiste, like a really squishy backline, like a Zen Mercy backline. Then I would consider, hey, you know what? It might actually be worth going on the hazard here instead. Because my backline's fairly squishy, and again, if we trade backlines, we'll just lose because my backline's squishier than theirs. So I kind of need to go for the hazard here. But this is the key nuance. Is sort of understanding, and like, go back to your V here. It's and reading these visual cues in the actual game and quickly determining, hey, you know what? Like these guys, Juno's not that killable. Hazard is definitely not killable at all. I've got characters that can out-rotate the Hazard and the Juno here very easily, and they can move past them. I can move past the Hazard here right now by just going to the right side and taking an angle here, and going onto the Farah. So, again, it's slight nuances in visual awareness like this that will distinguish between higher level capacities and where you're at right now. Again, it's really hard to do this in the game, I will say this. It's really hard to do because you've got like a split-second frame to like make a choice here. In actuality, I'm surprised you don't, or you're not aware, or you're not really looking at the left side here at all, really. Okay, you do look at the hazard here. But here, I think this is the frame where hazard goes in, like he's used Lash. This is your time to move. And actually, regardless of going down main here, you do ignore the hazard here, which I think is the correct choice to make. Is ignoring the hazard. Why do you choose to ignore him by going down main instead of going here?
I actually don't know.
Right? Because to me, like you actually, it's weird because you do the harder choice. Like you make the, in my opinion, it's harder to choose between this guy or these people and these people here to the right side. But you end up choosing in such a weird way, which makes your character vulnerable. I.e., you go down main for it. Which again, really, really odd. Yeah, not the best thing in the world. And again, I think that idea of out-rotating is really, really important. I think the visual cue to understand avoiding the hazard here is the leap, for sure. It's the leap, it's the distance, and I think that's by far your main visual cue, especially in the game at the moment. The second visual cue is your teammates, right? if no one here is at grave danger, or you can't save anyone, or it's not worth saving anyone on your team from a Hazard Juno here, then out-rotate the Hazard here. Again, we saw this on the very first fight on the last point of Samoa. We saw this again, I think, on another fight on the first point of Samoa too, and we're seeing it again here. So again, I wouldn't be shocked if you end up dying for this. We'll see though. Now I'm just scared that there's a Hazard coming behind you, and I'm gonna sort you. Get some nice shots, thankfully, and Hazard never comes for you. And then go for that. I'm actually curious as to where he moves the entire time. They end up chasing your tracer so much. Okay, God. Yeah, but you can see he's already trying to go onto you immediately. He just wastes his time going for a tracer, regardless. And that's why you make the right choice there, at least. Okay. 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 Okay, sure. Alright. Fine. Sure. 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 I mean, I haven't really mentioned this that much in terms of playing against diver characters, but it is good you are being proactive in terms of forcing out the Pharah and Tracer. It is really important to be doing that against dive comps, like Tracer. So, good fight there. Okay. Sure. Sure. Okay. Okay. Alright. Let's think. Okay. Fine. Okay. There's nothing crazy here, right? But now you've got High Noon. Where might you think about playing with High Noon?
I should probably be thinking about doing it on the high ground, on the right side.
Yeah, right. So you actually got point control right now. There's sort of two options that I was mainly thinking of. The first one was you get the Tracer after you kill the Tracer and Pharah. You continue to push with High Noon, so you press Q, and then go to spawn, get staggers, and then it becomes a really scuffed touch for them afterwards. Or you play point and you use the map control. So you hide in this room over here. You can hide in this room here somewhere. It's not as good here, to be honest. But you hide either place. I think this is probably the best place to hide, I'd say. You can also hide. I'm pretty sure you can get to here eventually. Yeah, you can probably hide here and then wait onto the point, and then High Noon. This is fine as well. Silence aren't as good because it's fairly easy to hide, but it becomes quite useful in like really messy overtime fights. But yeah, you could play here initially, flank here into high ground, and then High Noon, or just hide it for High Noon. The other one's fine, or again hide here. That's probably what I'd be thinking about as Cassidy. But we'll see what ends up happening here. Tracer goes down. Okay. 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 Tsune. Oh, you're gonna kill the Mercy, yeah. So I hate seeing this because stacking High Noon with Kitsune is like using Bap Window and High Noon at the same time. It's like both these ults here are used for the exact same purpose, which is to zone the enemy team. So again, you get the kill into the Mercy here. I think, let me see what do you see here? When you see the Mercy in open space, I think it's more reasonable to High Noon. What makes you High Noon here? Okay, yeah. So why High Noon this?
I guess it was just to try and like force them into that small bit of cover where the Diva is. Just try and like limit their sight lines so we can maybe push them.
Because here's the thing, I feel like the Kitsune already does that. Is kind of the point. Again, it's like it's using you're using two zoning ults for the same purpose. Again, in raw metas, this used to be like again using Bap Window and Simul at the same time. Again, it just seems a little bit inefficient. To sort of do that here. How do I phrase it or describe it? Yeah, I mean, here I wouldn't mind just sitting in Kitsune and spamming out shots, and then eventually in the mid fight you can look to flank around for a High Noon. So maybe again you can roll behind you, flank here, High Noon here, maybe, or again you can flank a little bit wider, High Noon here for a little bit maybe. But yeah, like all your damage right now is coming in one direction, regardless of whether you're High Nooning here or not, and that's kind of the main sort of fallacy here. I can maybe live with it a little bit more if again you were considering using Kitsune down here, and then maybe another ultimate from here, maybe. Like you're doing some kind of pincer. That could maybe work, but you're using High Noon from the same angle as you are on Kitsune, so I'm not a massive fan of this, essentially. You're lucky that the Mercy just flies out in open space when you catch her. Okay. Find the hammer. Okay. Okay. Not the best use of flashbang in the world. I wouldn't. He's not gonna be leaping on 75. In fact, you want him to leap on 75 HP actually. You kind of want him to leap because then he's not blocking and he's a lot more killable. But yeah. Okay. And like around about now, like now's when you back up, and now you can either again go for the Brig, who's probably gonna be here left side anytime soon. She's actually here right now. Yeah, that's where you might want to go for the Brig, or go for the Tracer, or you play like a wide LOS, like this angle here, and then press Q. Like now high nooning here would be great because you turn the point entirely. The Brig just dies, or the Tracer just dies. And now high nooning here would be great. Okay. How would you? Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm winning this. Okay. Okay. Okay, nothing crazy. Okay. Alright. Thankfully, I'm winning that. Alright. Yeah, that one, again, out-rotating Hazard there was the key thing. Micro there earlier, from, again, how you're using roll and your, how was it called? It was swinging the corner wide, swinging corner wide here again, and again, actually flanking through the top rights instead of going down main here. So a lot of positional stuff and a lot of micro stuff here, generally speaking. Okay, we'll look at, yeah, you want to go through the last bit of Samoa here, right? So you want to look at the other code.
Yeah, because the other code is Tracer, and to be fair, I don't really know what I'm even meant to be doing on Tracer. I have the mechanics, but I don't really know all the micro and everything.
Okay. Okay, what's your hero pool actually?
It's just Cast Tracer and Sojourn.
Cast Tracer Sojourn, okay. I'm wondering whether for you it might just be worth, like, what's like your most comfortable hero?
Well, definitely Sojourn, but I just don't really enjoy her as much as Cast or Tracer.
Right. What's like the gap between Sojourn, Cast, and Tracer for you in terms of like comfortability?
Well, whenever I want to like try hard with my friends and win every game, I just hard lock Sojourn, like one trigger.
Right.
So quite big.
Right. So I'm kind of shocked to sort of hear that. Would you say your Cast and Tracer are like roughly the same level? Or...
I say my Cast and Tracer are like Diamond 1, and then my Sojourn's like Master 4. Because I did one trigger to Master 5.
Okay. Here's the thing. Generally speaking, and then this is fairly obvious, right? But Tracer's like skill set and the skills on Tracer are quite a bit different to his scans in general. Like I think for you, I would probably stick to Cass and Sojourn and try. And I'm not saying for you to put Tracer on the backbone entirely. Of course, she might be useful in some swaps. But what situations would you play Tracer? Is what I'll ask.
That's a good question, actually. I just kind of pick her when the comp is like good for her, or if Cass isn't working on a short sightline map, I'll go Tracer.
Do you think of any situations where Cass won't work on a short sightline, where like basically Cass won't work, but Tracer will? Are there what situations can you think of that fit that criteria?
I mean, I guess the first one is if Cass is banned, but like besides that, besides that, probably if they're like well, if they're on like Anna Juno or something, or like, yeah, like Anna Juno, I know Tracer can get a lot of value from that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, double flex is a pretty good comp for Tracer. Again, my thing is like, it's twofold, right? The first thing is sort of what I mentioned a bit earlier in the VOD, or actually the end of Samoa first round, which was, hey, you kind of need to learn how to play this XYZ characters into, again, less optimal situations or less optimal comps. And again, I think if Cass is banned, that's fair. But then I think that's kind of a good thing almost because you just play Sojourn. And I think it's pretty rare for Cass and Sojourn to be banned, especially when Freya exists in the current state that she's currently in at the moment. So I would stray away from Tracer, at least for now. Like again, I think she's kind of had to be a clutch pick for you. But yeah, I mean, hell, even me, you know, like I fucking OTP Malga and Brig, and I'm fine. So I've got no concerns really. And bans help out, you know, soft counters anyways. So like I wouldn't be too concerned about it essentially. But we'll watch a little bit of Tracer, and then see how that pans out. But yeah, of course I'll try and keep in the greater context of like the other hero pools as well, because you have to keep in mind that the time you spend playing Tracer could be time spent playing Sojourn or Cassidy. And that could be time spent improving on those characters. It's a zero-sum game, essentially, is kind of what I'm saying. But yeah. Again, I don't want you to split yourself too thin. If you check leaderboards, you will see OTPs. Still, even with hero balance. And again, it's just like, you know, distilling your character. It's better to be, what this was saying, jack of all trades, master of none. And that's what you want to avoid, essentially. But yeah, we'll see here. Of course, the comp you're playing is more than reasonable into for Tracer. But yeah, it's still very doable. You know, I think it would be more interesting to like understand. Oh yeah, you can actually play Cassidy into this. You know, and try and understand how that actually works, because that will make you a better cast player. But yeah, okay. You see here. Normally what I do like a quick Tracer rundown here. I mean, I'll just briefly mention what you're looking to do against us, and what are they looking to do into you actually.
Into me, I'd imagine the Zen would be wanting to like discard the Junker Queen. They'd probably want to be bullying the Queen just because they're on like Mercy. And then my job is probably just to go on the Ana Zen and just try and keep them from doing anything.
What might stop you if you're the Zen here, and I've coached a very similar comp to this actually, believe it or not. If you're the Zen, what are you thinking about in terms of, again, because you know, right, that hey, this person, they want to go onto me. How do you prevent that as Zen if you're playing Zen here?
I guess you just try not to be too isolated.
Right. What about the team generally, like your comp generally as Zen? How would you prevent you on Tracer from getting on top of the Zen?
I'd just be marking her all the time, like marking the flank.
Right. So who might mark the flank here in this comp?
Genji.
Right.
Maybe Junkrat with a trap.
Right. So maybe Junkrat in some cases, right? But Genji's going to be the main one. Now, how as Zen can I help the Genji?
Harmony Orb.
Harmony Orb, right? So this is the really important thing, and actually I've literally coached this comp on Blizzard World, where the Genji will essentially be a puppy guard and mock flanks, and will if this guy's playing well, he will perma-mark you on Tracer with Orb. And even worse, against really good teams, the Genji will be permanently playing in Zen LOS all the time. So Zen will be shooting you, and he'll be discording you, and this guy will have harmony on you. So that's something that's really, really important to understand. It's when dueling this guy becomes a false option. Well, I don't actually want you dueling this guy at all, really, unless it becomes in your favor. But if you see this guy with a harmony orb, leave immediately. I want you don't bother dueling him, unless of course you've got some kind of advantage that, again, maybe the Genji's like really, really low, or whatever case may be, right? But generally, I do not want to see you match the Genji, because as we've went through logically, that's what this guy wants to do. So in other words, flank around, right? Play wide, out rotate the Genji, because you can move away from him. And don't force a matchup if you don't need to. Yeah, we'll see how easy it is for you to get onto the backline. Because if they're playing well, I mean, your Soldier's not playing that well, to be honest, right now so far. But if they're playing well, it's going to be hard for you to reach Honor Zen. Or it's going to be a little bit laborious. Okay. We'll see here. What is that Honor positioning? Holy. Okay, dude, whatever. You know what? Sure, why not? Yeah, just play isolated, close to a Tracer, with no actual escape paths in Masters. Why not? Why not? Nice dodge. I wouldn't go in just yet because you're down one, but just hopefully your timing isn't too bad. Yeah, sure. She's actually out rotating you, which is fine from her. Okay, sure. Oh, this is okay. The way you end up blinking to isn't terrible, but it's not great though. After you kill Junkrat, where should you move?
I probably should just go back to where I was and go around.
Yes.
Behind where the mini is.
Right. Why? So that you answered that with zero hesitation. Why do you end up going here?
I guess it's just the more direct route.
Right. I mean, based on again, this is a fairly obvious question, right? But what are the issues with how you blink here?
I mean, I'm right in Zen LOS, aren't I? So
yeah, open space.
Just tap me.
And yeah, so I would expect a reforce. Like, you've got no blinks here. What about right? No blinks, and you're right in Zen LOS. Discord. Okay, you're actually playing cover fairly well here, so I'm surprised you don't get reforced immediately. Oh my god. and she misses sleep dart. Okay, it was going well there initially for a short while. Where here, and this is a really, really important idea, not just on Tracer, but on any character in the game. When you're playing, and this actually applies to the Samoa VOD too. If you're playing, where is it? What about here? Can these guys? How do I phrase this? Are you at much danger right now?
No, because I have cover in a health pack.
Exactly, right? So even though you're playing incredibly aggressive right now, you are actually not in much danger at all. And the exact same idea applies if you're playing Cassidy here as well. Now, obviously, if you're playing Cassidy here, your sightlines are a little bit different because you haven't got 3 different blinks. So it's a bit different to how you play this, but the general idea is the same. Where against very low mobility backlines, playing behind them is not dangerous, or doesn't have to be dangerous. Now, unfortunately, you make it dangerous because I don't think you cleanse Discord here at all. No, you don't cleanse it at all before you peek the angle. And secondly, you blink out an open spacer. Again, no blinks, open space, and she almost sleeps you. In fact, she just misses. Yeah, I think she just misses her sleep dart entirely. I think she just used it against you. That's some tripping. Yeah, she just used it against you, and she just missed entirely. So why do you blink out an open spacer? Because the clip is fine.
I was trying to go for like uptime, which is stupid now I think about because I have uptime on the corner. But
exactly,
I guess I was just trying to get as much attention as I could.
Right. And the whole thing about uptime is actually really important, right? But this is not the way to go about it. And what you're doing here is minimizing your uptime by going out in open space. Again, I see this from a lot of players where they'll jeopardize their mid-fight value, or they'll get recall forced out, or whatever the case may be, just to get value right now in the moment. And essentially, the only time I would blink out an open space like this is if either of these targets are 1 HP. But clearly, they're not. So yeah, going out in open space just makes 0 sense, and you're very lucky you don't get slept here, or you take one shot there by Ana. You're very lucky, there in general. Again, I would not be. Oh my god, just wait for blinks. Wait for blinks. So blinking is good, right? But just chill, just wait. I wouldn't even again go in again here necessarily, you know. Just have a little look back, play for blinks, play this cover here. Maybe think of it taking a different angle here, maybe. Just don't go peek this again with no blinks. Okay. Sure. Okay, what's the issue now?
The Cassidy's respawning.
That is part of it, obviously. More generally though, what's happened in this operates?
Oh yeah, my queen's died.
Yes, right. So there's no attention draw here from the enemy team, right? They can essentially spend all their resources in clearing you out, because your queen's just died. So I chillax it, essentially. But yeah, right about now, I would like leave. I would just stay here, AFK leave, and hold this angle. Again, they can't chase you. They just can't. Yeah, you can either just blink across it and then just play in their spawn, or again, stay here and then play here and hide here. When the other option's fine. But we'll see what ends up happening here. Yay! Oh my god! Oh! And now you give up your angle, like for basically no reason. Again, like look at their comp. They can't chase you, and you've given them space for no reason. And again, I see this a lot in Tracer players, a lot. Because, you know, just in 2 moves, you could be either here, instead of being here. In 2 moves. But yeah. Okay. Hopefully you can be station time. This soldier just dies. Fortunate. Okay. Flanking is fine. Okay, go back in and watch the micro here. Alright. Okay, so yeah. How far are you away from the Cassidy when you see him? You've got enough distance here. Yeah, I mean, why do you blink out? I mean, it's not a terrible blink because you do have cover here to use. Like you've got the little, what's it called, cart thing to use, so it's not terrible. We'll see the rest of the blinks here. Okay, sure. Okay, actually not as bad as I thought. I think every blink is actually fairly okay-ish. I think again the blink here to the pushing cart is fine, and the blink afterwards to juke the Cassidy is fine. Trigger discipline's also fairly okay too. You don't waste that many bullets. So it's fine. Get a nice clip. Yeah, nothing crazy. I think my only concern is that last blink towards the end. Right about here. Now I would not. You're not within blinkingly distance here, sadly. I see this a lot here as well with Tracers where they'll just try and go for the blink melee. When in reality they're either too far away or the character isn't low enough HP to go for the blink melee. And here, I think your Arbalets, 040, and the Cassidy is not below 40 HP. So I'll not go for the blink here essentially. Just too risky. Okay. Sure. Okay. Where should you move to now?
Probably the boxes to my left, so I could stage for the Ana, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know what Ana's playing here, but very clear target, isolated, got a pick. Yeah, more than reasonable. Ooh, that's not good. And this is the thing, like every single time, in actuality, even when I'm playing the game or when I coach teams, either one, whenever we're in a 5v4, I always say play slow or stabilize, because dumb shit like this will always happen. And the amount of times I've seen players lose fights in a 5v4 or die in a 5v4 for no actual reason is kind of insane. And this is a prime case of it here, where you should die. You just don't. Okay, this guy's got. You cannot. You didn't even get the critical HP on the hook. Like, how did he not just shoot? I'm baffled. Like, I need to see this. I'm sorry. How the hell? Okay, his crosshair is. Oh my days! It's just completely off of you. So you're very lucky here. But against a good hog player, you will just die. And I guess the concept I use to sort of explain this to players is kind of twofold. Basically, there's like two factors you want to keep in mind. How unnecessary are players and how risky are players. Now, I'm completely fine with you doing something that's unnecessary as long as it's not risky. Conversely, I'm completely fine with you doing something that's risky as long as it's necessary to do that. What I'm not fine with is doing both at the same time. And what you did there was both risky and unnecessary. Now, because you don't actually need to necessarily go into the Ana. You also don't need to put yourself in open space and chase her immediately, which again is unnecessarily risky. Combining those two ideas, and that's how I generally explain it to players, to stop them from feeding in 5v4s. Yeah, very lucky here. Okay. All right. Yeah, Juno could use that advice too. But yeah. Okay, let's see here. There's gonna be a lot of micro here. Now, with pulse bombs, it's honestly a very overlooked ultimate where people just throw it by vibes and they don't really think about it too much. But I've sort of started to think pulse bomb a lot more in terms of, again, like it's really important that you try your best to hit it and you put a lot of thought into predicting enemy movements. And in other words, before you throw this pulse bomb, you kind of need to know, roughly, where or how the Ana's going to move before you even throw it. So we can slow it down here a little bit, and we'll focus on the pulses specifically, not even the blinks for now. Again, I don't think you need to be pulsing this, but we'll focus on blinks for now. Alright, so despite Ana's body language, you predicted me, right now in this frame, where is she going to move?
Probably to the left.
Right, why to the left?
Just because
if you're Ana here, why would you want to move to the? I mean, to her right or your left? Why would you want to move backwards essentially?
Just back to cover, probably.
Exactly, right. So I brought this up with my what's his name? Zera from what's it called? Hangzhou, and because he was hitting sticks like crazy against crazy raccoons, and every single time he had a pulse, he pretty much knew where the enemy team were gonna move 5 seconds before we even actually threw a pulse. And this is kind of the point here, where just by the virtue of, hey, I'm Ana, I'm wanting to move back to safety here, you can predict or roughly guesstimate where the Ana's gonna move here. So we'll slow it down here really slow. But yeah, I would too guess that she's gonna move left side here, by her own safety metric. We'll see. Here we go. She's moving left. Okay. And actually, I think that's a fairly fair pulse bomb. I actually don't mind that pulse because it's predicting or trying to predict the arc of the Ana's movements. So even if you don't hit or stick the pulse, as long as it's again trying to catch the Ana in her arc or catch the Ana in her movement path, then I think that's fine. Again, I don't really, loads of coaches or loads of guides will tell you, oh yeah, focus on, you know, the blink distance and whatever the case. That doesn't really matter, right? Because Ana is moving in this trajectory over here. So all you need to do is put yourself in a position where you can hit pulse anywhere on this path, right? So you could be here and toss it here. You could be here, toss it here. You could be here right now and blink forward and toss it here. It doesn't really matter where you are, as long as you again toss the pulse bomb according to the Ana's yellow movement path. Is how I explain pulses to players. But yeah, I mean, that pulse there, fairly reasonable. My only sort of qualm there really is the hog kind of scares you, and that's probably why you had to blink away. I think in actuality, again, if hog wasn't here, or had you had a little bit more time to use, you probably hit this pulse. Because again, I think it's very easy for you to just blink once, press Q, you know, without having to use another blink here, and you know, complicate the movement path essentially. And again, you probably stick the Ana there because of it. Because here you're having to do some complex flex mechanic thing, because of hog, right? And you don't want to stand in open space against the hog. So that's probably why you missed the pulse. But yeah, that's completely reasonable. I've slept, okay. Oh yeah, but you also have no recall as well, which is actually kind of I completely forgot to mention that. But yeah, no re there, also not great. How did it get forced? Oh yeah, hog hook, yeah. Yeah, not particularly great. What could you have done here instead? Or what should you have done here instead, macro-wise?
Honestly, probably just play cover and try and poke out the Ana to force her attention away from hog.
Right, so here's fine, poke out Ana. Here's fine and flank around, and then you can do the same thing, right? Like, just play slow, essentially. You've got no recall, you are already down one. Yeah, that's it, really, essentially. And then again, if you see hog being split away, so maybe you see the hog move here, or Ana moves here, then you can go for the pulse bomb a lot more easily, because you've got more time, you're safer, essentially, to try and hit the pulse without having to worry about hog. That becomes a little bit easier. But yeah, something to note for the future. Okay. Again, I think again those two fights there, the first fight against the Zen Ana and this fight here, kind of showcases that your mentality is very sort of, I need to get value now. Or my character's not worth playing. Whereas again, playing a little bit slower, taking a little bit more time, will grant you a lot more, a much higher uptime, and generally a lot higher rewards the longer the fight goes. But yeah, okay, we'll do a quick summary here. We'll go and use this. We'll use this wall. Okay. Okay, first thing, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious, but it kind of needs to be, again, adapting your playstyle to the enemy comp and map. Again, on Samoa first, it really comes down to like heavier flanking, shorter sightlines. I'm playing to the right. As well as again dynamically moving. And I think again the first fight there was a really good example where you stood in the exact same position for 23 seconds. Whereas again you could have moved to the left side. Second thing is going to be I'll say yeah, because it's easy. I'll just say like roll micro. I'll say roll and corner micro. Again, don't waste roll on flanks unless hazard flankers are already out, or the flank is super long, and then swing corners with. And actually, I'll show an example of that now. So if I go here, up, it was, I think it was my Freya video somewhere. Yes. Okay. That's somewhat here. Okay. Here it is. Yeah. Unless I'm tripping. Well, okay, sure. So the point I was making here was that Seeger's playing really close to this corner here, and then because of that, you can't see Chronic, who's essentially bursting them down with bowlers, or just take aim shots. And I link a video there by Coptology about swinging the corner wide. This is a visual example of me showing the exact same thing, but a lot clearer of an example, and a lot more extreme of an example. Of course, on Cassidy here, there is like a worry about fall off here, but again, I wouldn't be so worried about that because again, you can always just walk forward eventually and close. You can always walk forward here eventually. It's not a massive concern. Anyways, on Cassidy, you might be wanting to flank here regardless, maybe to the right side here, and depending on their comp. Yeah, something worth noting. Again, trying to swing corners with distance. Not hogging them all the time. And then third thing, we'll just say patience. Slash visual cues. I can think. Has slashing on Samoa seconds. Flank coast side, and his hat has is not killable. Dangerous. That's why you flank coast side, and then patience again. Tracer. Tracer blink management. Blink. Again, not stalling on low blinks, and aggressive safe positioning. And what's else? I'll just say pulse prediction. Well, honestly, I wouldn't be too worried about that for now. Okay. Yeah. Those are, I guess, the three main points. Obviously, again, I would advise trying to distill your playtime mostly into Sojourn, and then Cassidy where you see fit, or if Sojourn's banned. But yeah. Any questions or queries?
When would you recommend next getting a session? After like a few weeks or like a month?
Yeah. So like it. Yeah. It's a good question. So players ask me this all the time. It's so generally, I mean, I know some players will just they want a session like the week after, and I'm like, chillax. Like you need some time to like distill or like actually apply this stuff to your game. I've had players that will improve quickly in the span of 2 weeks, and then they'll start climbing. And conversely, I've had players that have waited a month to 6 weeks, and then they want another session. So really, the fact that depends mainly is whether you feel like you've actually applied the stuff in the VOD itself, whether you feel like you've plateaued after you've applied the stuff as well, is when getting next session becomes again more reasonable. So in other words, basically, if you, again, hypothetically, you played the next game, and you were climbing on Cassidy fairly steadily for the next 2 or 3 weeks, so you went from like Master 5 to Master 3, and then you plateaued, then getting another session would make sense. If you're still on Master 5, so maybe you're still on Master 5 or D1, and then you still plateau for like 3 to like 5 weeks, I'd say, maybe even 2 to 5 weeks necessarily. Again, then I would start thinking about getting another session, because then either it's you can't apply the advice given in the VOD, in which case I probably wouldn't get another session. I would probably just try and soft review yourself, look at what's going on in your gameplay, and try and identify visual cues that are going wrong in your game. And also play the game less, because that's probably a part in why you might be plateauing in that sort of elo. Again, I would just be a lot more thoughtful with how you play the game. Because so far, even when I've asked you questions, you've kind of adequately answered without much hesitation about what to do, which kind of implies to me that you need better you need essentially better habit building, in the long term. So yeah, if you might end up plateauing for 2 to 5 weeks, then that might just be because, again, you're struggling to apply that advice in the VOD, in which case that probably comes down to habit building, or the advice in this VOD here would not be applicable, or it's not the thing holding you back from climbing. I doubt that's the case here, because I think dynamic positioning applies pretty much everywhere, and combat adaptations apply pretty much every game. So I'll be adapting to different comps on the different maps. I think again that first fight in Samoa is like, again, really like representative of just play in this elo in general, where people just won't adapt to their playstyle depending on the comp that they're playing against. And they'll stay static a lot of the time. But yeah. And speaking about the habit building stuff too, if you read Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear, a really, really famous book. There's like 4 steps of like creating a habits, which is cue, craving, and this is for all habits in general, rewards, and then repeats. Again, any habit you think of, this is again how habits form. And there's like 2 ways of like, again, trying to form or break bad habits and form new ones. The first one is to pay more specific attention to the cues that go on in your game. So again, the hazard slash on second point Samoa would be an example. The fact that the Widow in the very first fight on Samoa, when you see the Widow tracer shots, those are the Widow like shot trace essentially, as well as the hazard going onto you, that is also your visual cue to tell you to move to the fucking left side and start flanking a lot more. And their comp in general will tell you, hey, okay, I'm playing against Widowmaker, and now I know how to play the micro correctly. I know, okay, I'm gonna wait for the Widow to shoot a bullet, then I'm gonna peek, or I'm gonna roll first if I'm going into Widow, so I get a damage reduction roll, and then I can actually go into Widowmaker. There's all kinds of micro there, right? When I've coached Genji's playing into Echoes, and again, next time when Genji's playing into Echoes, they play a lot better because they're like, oh yeah, next I see Echo now I know what to do. Now visually they recognize, okay, I need to take this duel differently against Echo. That's kind of the first thing. Second thing is the craving that you can fix. Again, a lot of players in this elo, and again, this might come down to patience, where a craving that I like saying basically is like bloodlust is a craving, where players will try and get kills, and they really want to get a kill. They're craving for the kill. And in actuality, again, that will jeopardize their value in the mid fight. So again, conversely, if they're playing for space control, if they're switching their mindset away from getting kills to broader space control, then their play will be a lot slower, a lot more disciplined, and they'll get more value in the mid fight by having higher uptime. But yeah, those are again the habit stuff that I would recommend trying to work on, or at least maybe read about or something. But yeah, hopefully that sort of answers your question. But yeah, anything else?
I mean, just a final one is like, how would I go about practicing it? Would I just focus on one at a time for maybe like a week, or should I maybe less than a week, maybe like a day each or something? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a few things to that. So the first one's like the points are kind of interconnected. So or I try to make the points interconnected. I think the third one is more disconnected from the first 2. But essentially, the reason why I listed it in like 1, 2, 3 is in terms of importance. Generally, the things you want to be working on are things that are easiest to work on, but also the most impactful to work on as well. And I think that first point is a mixture of both, where it's not the hardest thing in the world to understand on Cassidy. If you're playing Cass against that comp you were playing on Samoa first, you probably need to be taking short sidelines. You probably need to be flanking a lot more. You probably need to be playing kind of like a tracer almost, honestly, against that kind of composition. It's not that hard to figure out. And it's also incredibly impactful. I mean, again, the first fight, I think that's, again, it would have been so impactful had you gone left side, killed that Widowmaker, avoided the hazard, flanked onto the enemy backline, and gotten 2 kills. That would have been incredibly impactful. As well as other fights on Samoa as well. That's generally how I list it. In terms of like, again, when do I start working on this next point and this next point, right? When do I start doing that? Either if you can't work on this point any longer, or you feel that it's like you've sort of maxed it out, or you've plateaued on that point, and then you feel like, okay, I've done this first point, I feel like I'm comfortable with that. Now I'm going on to this point. I've also had players that are like, oh yeah, it's too hard for me to work on this first point. So then I'm like, okay, you can work on this point or this point if it's easy for you, because then you're still improving at the game. So yeah. So I think timing's a good example of that. I think where timing is really easy to fix, because if you've got bad timing, you look at your tank, and that's just literally it. But thankfully for you, your timing's actually been pretty good, so I've got no complaints about that really. Barring the queen a bit earlier. But yeah, that's generally again how I would try and work on these. I would try and again, they're interconnected. You'll probably find yourself working on these points here subconsciously or unintentionally, anyways. But yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that, right? Because like roll micro is also part of me going on a flank. Let's say the comp allows it, right? So I'd be working on almost 2 at a time.
Exactly, right. So like again, when you're flanking on Cassidy, i.e., doing this first point against an immobile comp, and the next time you see a Widowmaker in your games, or not even necessarily Widowmaker, it could be, I don't know, Soldier, and you're trying to roll through Helix, or it's Freya and you're rolling through bowler shots, or a Freya take aim shot, or you're playing against God, what's another important bit of roll micro? Echo, right? And you're trying to roll through stickies. Like, you'll subconsciously think through that anyways. And yeah, that's why I try and interconnect the points generally. And make it holistic rather than reduce the game down into like component parts. But yeah, those are that's yeah. You essentially work on two things at once essentially. The third thing again is it's kind of mainly on Tracer, but again that will come later. I would recommend working on Hitscan for now. Not to bite off more than you can chew. But yeah, anything else?
No, that's it really.
Great. Well, glut climbing. Who knows? I might see you in my games. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, good luck climbing. And yeah, any questions you can also DM me. And apart from that, see ya.
Yeah, honestly, thank you.